Ghost stories and food. What a perfect pairing. Think about it. You're out by a campfire, you have s'mores going on, and great stories that are just designed to scare you out of your wits. Ghosts also happen to be a big passion of mine, as well as food, and judging by the views that we've gotten on our ghost stories in the past, you guys love them too, because our ghost stories tend to be some of the most viewed videos that we put out here at New Taste today. So with that being said, we're going to start putting out a lot more ghost stories, and not just stories from individuals calling in to my radio show, but also stories and interviews that we're going to procure regarding specific hauntings all over the world. We're going to talk to the people who've experienced these things firsthand. So pop open a bottle of wine, make some s'mores with your lighter or whatever you have to make a s'more with, and sit back and enjoy some more ghost stories from New Taste today. Let's go to the phones. You're on the show. What's your story?
All right. I got a little cousin. He's about 3 years old. Mm-hmm. He walked into the living room one day singing, I've been working on the railroad. His grandma asked him, said, where'd you learn that song? Because she taught him everything, all the songs he knew, and she never taught him that. And he said, Allie taught him. She said, well, who's Allie? And he said it was a friend of his, and, well, he never left the house. He was only 3. And she said, well, what does she look like? He said, well, she's about my height. She wears a flowered dress, and she's dead, and she's got an eye hanging out of her head, you know?
Oh, my gosh!
Yeah, and he plays with her. Well, she kind of, blew it off and thought it was his imagination making stuff up, About 3 or 4 months later, his aunt heard him playing in his bedroom, so she walked there and said, Justin, who are you playing with? He said, I'm playing with Allie. And she said, who's Allie? He said, well, she's my friend. She said, what does she look like? He said, well, she's about my height, has a flower dress, and she's dead, and she has one eye hanging out of her head. Described her the same way 3 months later, and he's 3 years old. Mm-hmm. And later on, the next day, his little music box started playing The Muffin Man. Mm-hmm. And his aunt walked in the room, and none of the kids were in the room. All their toys were picked up, and the little tape player was laying out in the middle of the bedroom floor with the play button pushed down, and all the kids were downstairs asleep.
Have you ever been able to narrow down who this Allie person is? Was there an Allie that lived in that house at one point?
I haven't, and my cousins haven't at all. But we do know it's a very old house, and I used to go down in the basement, and down in the basement would freak me out because there's like a really skinny passageway back where this closet is. You go in and it's a closet, and at the back of the closet there's a skinny passageway, and they also have like big rings bolted to the walls, looks like what people used to be chained to back in the scary movies,
Yeah.
There's those there, so I don't know. That's the scariest thing I think about the house.
That's bizarre.
Yes, it is.
It'd be very interesting to find out the history, and if you can search genealogy or anything to find out if there was any little girl in the house that lived there by that name.
Yeah, it was strange, especially a 3-year-old, remembering either he has a very good memory or he's actually seeing somebody, because usually a 3-year-old doesn't remember exactly what somebody looks like 3 months later.
Very true. Thank you for your story. Let's go to another call. Hi.
My son was killed in Iraq, and I talked to him when I lay down at night. And one day I said, I wish I knew that you could hear me. And about that time, someone or something grabbed a hold of my foot while I was laying in bed and just shook the heck out of it.
Oh, my goodness.
It brought me comfort. It wasn't
a
horrible thing for me. I thought it was wonderful, and I think that's kind of a positive ghost story.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those angel-type stories.
Yes, exactly.
Where it's more of a comforting thing.
Oh, it was wonderful. Yes, I felt like it was a blessing.
So have you had any other experiences like that?
Right after he was killed, his name was written in the dust on my back door.
Really?
And there was nobody around who would have done that. And it's not done, just in a normal way. Mm-hmm. It's real scraggly and kind of like it was an effort to get it done. And I had a dream then the night before we found out that he was killed, that he was hurt. And the whole side of my face, I woke up with what I thought was this massive migraine, and that was where he had been injured. His side of his face had been blown off.
It's amazing, the mother's intuition, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
What can happen.
Well, he was my best friend and a blessing from the day he was born, and so these aren't bad things. These are good things. He was a blessing from the day he was born, and I'm just glad God let me borrow him for 28 years.
Thank you for your story.
Thank you so much.
It's stories like that really make you think a little bit more deeply about what this thing is that we call a ghost. And it almost makes you wonder if there's more than just one type of a ghost. It almost would appear to be that way, where you hear stories like that where it's a very positive experience, and then you hear stories where it's the last thing or the furthest thing from a positive experience when dealing with something paranormal. Let's go to another call. Hi.
Okay, I was in high school and getting ready for school in the morning. The house was empty. I heard somebody call my name, so I walk out of the bathroom, and I'm standing right in front of my doorway, and the bed is facing me. And I hear my name again, and I turn around, and there is like this dark figure sitting on my bed with his hand held out. I just dropped the brush and I left. Just like, okay, time to go. To this day, I swear it was some kind of evil demon or something. I mean, I could see his whole figure, the eyes and...
Did anyone else in the house ever have anything strange happen to them?
Lots of things. Our house used to be a doctor's office.
Oh, so chances are some people had passed on in there unexpectedly.
Yeah. When I was older, I would talk to my mom about waking up and feeling like somebody was holding me down.
Oh, geez.
And she was like, "You're kidding. That used to happen to me all the time."
Oh, gosh.
We never talked about it. This was after I was, out of the house. Mm-hmm. And we were just like, "Oh, I can't believe that it happened to me."
But and nobody would share the stories because everybody thought they'd be deemed crazy.
Right. So it was after we had left the house before we ever talked about it.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know how many times I left the house. I came home for lunch when I was like in 5th grade, and there was a bar that I was sitting at, and above me was my parents' bedroom. I heard somebody get out of the bed, walk all the way above my head, and every step creaked down. Geez. Of course, I left again because I'm a big chicken.
So have you ever talked to anybody who lived in the house after you?
No, because my dad still owns it.
Okay.
I haven't...
Probably not the biggest selling point.
No, I don't think I want to share that. But, yeah, there's been several things that have just been weird.
And that's putting it very lightly. Let's go to another call as we pair food with ghost stories here today. What's yours?
Well, my dad passed away at the end of August of this year. He passed away on a Friday, and that following Tuesday was his funeral. Monday night before the funeral, my sister's lights in her bedroom were flickering for about 30 minutes.
Really?
And then they stopped. The day of the funeral, I have an old-time telephone that was on a shelf in the kitchen, and it came flying off the wall, but it didn't just fall. It was flung down the hallway to where it was almost ripped out of the wall.
Oh, wow.
And then later on that week, my nephew, they live in Burns, and he's only 2. And he was playing in his room, and his dad was in the office next to his room, and he could hear him giggling and laughing. And his dad went in there and looked at him, and he was just sitting in the corner just laughing and giggling. His dad went back to his office, and when my nephew came out of his room, he said, "Bye-bye, Papa Jeff," and that was my dad's name.
Wow.
His grandpa. I mean, it's kind of ironic.
It's a little more than ironic.
My sister had her phone plugged into the wall, and if you don't set it just right, it'll charge and recharge itself by itself. And it kept doing it for about 15 minutes, and she wasn't touching it. And she said, "Dad, I have to go to bed. I have to get up in the morning." And it stopped.
Parents listening to their kids in the afterlife. Better late than never, right? We'll have many more pairings of ghost stories with food or wine or whatever you like to enjoy while listening to these ghost stories. Wine always makes them a little bit better, I tend to find. We'll have more of those to come very soon here at New Taste Today. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Tony Bruschi. Don't be too afraid of the dark now.